So this is dancing and grieving with the sacred, two iconic devotions that critique fatalism and power. Okay, here comes the generalizations. It's about devotions to the Santo Niño and the Nazareno are the Christologies of the people, and they are expressed partly by indigenous and partly by biblical images. And that the devotion is a spirituality of an individual or collective preferences, fondness, and passion for a person which pays homage according to certain ways. Now, in the pre-Spanish Filipinos, venerate the spirits of their ancestors called anitos, or guardians, objects believed to contain the sacred. These were represented by carved wooden or stone idols, which they kept in their dwellings and pacified with food, animals, and other sacrifices to bring about success in a war, a bountiful harvest, or a happy marriage. Now, the natives adorned their anitos with colorful charms and pendants to bring about prosperity in their lives. Now, as a footnote, I would like to show here an image. This is the example of this practice of ornamenting a person for success in life, and this is an example of a post-colonial bride. So, now that I have mentioned the word post-colonial, I feel that I'm qualified for the conference. Now, you know, this is post-colonial bride. Her father is a Spanish, living in Spain, and her mother is living in Cavite, Philippines. So, very good example of post-colonial bride. Now, another example, which is you found in many parts of the country, especially in agricultural countries, is also the practice of this is among farmers, that they put ornaments on their heads, on the heads of the carabaos or the beast of burden, or our beast of burden, also in order to access or to bring up prosperity in their agricultural lands. So the purpose of mimicking rich nature was to reveal the sacred as manifestation of power, favorable to the production of commodities like rice, sweet potatoes, cassava, etc. Then Europeans came to the islands to look for this. These are spices. So the Spaniards came, the Europeans came to the east to look for spices, but then they also brought with them these two icons that also for them would be looking after for their safety and for their success in the colonies. And these are the icons of the Santo Niño and later on of the Señor Nazareno that the conquistadores believed would bring favorable outcome to their own search of commodities. The icons of Santo Niño and Señor Nazareno later became the poster icons of Filipino popular religiosity after the native Filipinos reappropriated them even long after the colonizers left. Now, these two Christian icons, being then the new anitos, were adorned with the ornate jewels and made bright in colors, just like the natives were doing with the original anitos. A successful production of their food and commodities was expected in imitation of the colors of life portrayed in the icons. But the natives' new zeal in ornamenting these Catholic icons came a disclosure regarding a certain susceptibility of the pre-Spanish Filipinos, which we would like to term as aesthetic sensibilities. And this may explain the reason for ornamenting the icons. Animistic religion thrives along aesthetic sensibilities, based either on the physical components of the body or on social relationships. Discharges from the body are considered pollution and therefore carriers of bad omens. Illnesses that exude messiness and bodily distortions are attributed to bad spirits and only religious rituals can drive them away. Aesthetic sensibilities are not simply oriented to our physical things. They can be social relationships too, even with spirits. Sickness can also result from bad relationship with spirits or having had a run-in with them. There is a need for an aesthetic relationship with these entities that are usually unrecognizable, that is translated into staying in harmony with the environment or living a smooth relationship only with people, not only with people, but also in nature, like a tree, a forest, or a mountain. Ultimately, making these places messy and devastated or degraded are images that would not bring fortunes. For the natives, aesthetic sensibilities, the fragility of the original child icon, as you see there, and the messy bloodiness of the Nazareno were pictures of the absence of aesthetics. They would only bring bad luck to the natives. Their aesthetic sensibilities inspired them, these are the sensibilities of the natives, inspired them to do these icons what they used to do with the Anitos, give them ornaments and bright colors. Besides, the natives' belief that the newly ornamented icons would bring in successful harvest. There was also the feeling of safety, for they have found in those icons their new guardians. So the early Christianized natives, without discarding some indigenous elements of the pre-Spanish religion, easily adopted the Santo Niño and the Señor Nazareno as their Pintakasi or guardians. Now, as a footnote, I would also like to show an image in which, in modern contemporary religion, like among the evangelicals, the charismatics, the use of the Bible as a sacred is also meant to bring about financial success. Contemporary version of the Anito thing. So that's the example of that. It's all the same. The most important, the new Anitos, the Niño and the Nazareno, have a personal name. As we say, they have this Niño and the Nazareno as the new Anitos have a personal name. The name is Jesus. This man, this Anito Jesus has a face and lively and lived history. So we have to remember that the Anitos are they were nameless spirits and impersonal forces in the cosmos. They influenced the course of events like good harvest or successful hunting through rituals. I'm talking about the original Anitos. The presence of these Anitos, the Niño and the Nazareno, with names and faces, has a new impact on a world where there are many active spirits and deities. The impact of these Christian icons on the animistic world can be in a Christian terminology called revelation. By revelation, we do not mean a supernatural intervention, but simply the new experience that is not foreign to the human cognition. The two Christian icons are still received as spirit powers in the cosmos and can still be categorized as Anitos, but now as persons, they bring a sense of rationality to an impersonal cosmic environment. In summary, what revelation brought through the devotion is the new manifestation of power of the sacred that has gone beyond simply bringing about material success. The new revelation is this: power is manifested to the powerless and the vulnerable. So the icons of the Niño and the Nazareno were meant to bring good fortune to the natives in their commodity production and to the conquistadores in their own search for spices. Instead, they disclose a revelation which deconstructed the very root theology of the conquistadores, that power comes from the Supreme Being, and the manifestation of power reflects the image of the Supreme Power. The subsequent exercise of that supreme power cascaded into the ecclesiastical institution to which the conquistadores belonged. However, the icons express it otherwise. The sacred manifested through the images of the weak. This revelation discloses that the sacred cannot be used as instruments to bring about good fortunes. rather than mimicking of the sacred, to the frolicking as in Santo Niño or bleeding as in Nazareno, is what brings identification with the sacred, which no less is Christ, who is eternal life. The manifestation of power in the sacred, an object manifests a quality suggested by the external quality of the object. For example, power as hardness finds manifestation in the rock. A fragile child or a bleeding man would attract ill fortune. Not so anymore in the new revelation. The bleeding Nazarene carries a heavy cross on the shoulder and a crown of thorns on the head. Brown represents royal power, but it is a blood-drawing, thorn-laden crown that rests on the King of Kings, as he is portrayed in popular Catholicism. The child in the box was once a child in the manger, and the Nazareno was the same person messing with blood. So a revelation has emerged that power makes its manifestation in two icons of vulnerability. The child, instead of being an agent of fear, has become an object of devotion, just as a bleeding victim has become an object of sympathy. The Nazareno reveals that power is in the suffering love of the victim. Thus, this new revelation, the two icons bear the sacred that critique current cultures and structures of power. Here's a subtle subversion of the power of the conquistadores, who brought these two icons to court favorable results for their commerce. Instead, the dominated colonized natives were treated to playfulness by the lovable God in the child, and were drawn into a bleeding solidarity with the loving and suffering God, represented by the Black Nazarene. Through these icons, the evangelizers became the evangelized. So dancing with the Santo Niño in Sinolog is actually an experience where social divisions are set aside, or at least for a while. The attempt for cosmic unity through this celebration, however, may give rise to fatalism, a worldview that looks at events as determined in advance and humans are powerless to change them. But this is not really so, because the images of the Santo Niño and the Santo Cristo, or the San Nazareno, actually challenge their devotees. The suffering that goes with birth and the vulnerability of childhood can be regarded as the beginning of Christ's Paschal mystery. In the mythic imagination, the child also symbolizes future and hope. Nativity and childhood challenge us to participate in our own living of the child of the old self, to embrace a grown self. Contemplating the vulnerability of Christ's childhood can draw us to participate actively in cultivating the practice of peace in a vulnerable and violent world. But anyway, the Black Nazarene, through the appearance of a suffering Savior, is calling on whoever who wants to be his disciples to take up freely and actively their crosses and follow him. To the cross, he is calling his disciples to engage in radical self-denial, because that is only the way to find oneself in solidarity with others, whose crosses are not just metaphors, but real persecutions and oppressions due to their living faith. Like the child Jesus, the cross-bearing Christ is a picture of non-violence. And here we have a picture of the Santo Niño, the playfulness, because the icon of the Nazarene is too serious. So the playfulness of the Santo Niño offers a contrast to the seriousness and gravity of the Black Nazarene. The custom of the child in various settings, like a policeman, a king, a vagabond, evokes comic sense and humor. He is indeed a lovable and playful fellow. The Santo Niño represents the comic irony in the religious imagination. It is a criticism of the domination of old structures that have never been questioned, and whose motto is semper idem, always the same. People of power and influence take themselves too seriously. We need this to discharge our stress over the domination of society by patriarchal structures. In a world of endless conflicts, here is a popular religion's alternative narrative. Love is energizing and transformative in the narrative of childlike playfulness on one hand, and serious solidarity with victims on the other. And here are two icons of paradox. Here is the power and fragility, invulnerable and vulnerable. King kingship and misery, glory and the cross. Thanks to these vibrant paradoxes in popular religiosity, the religious imagination is provoked to think fresh thoughts for alternative worlds where peace, justice, and love reign supreme. And that's final.